Hi everyone, it's Maris, and today we're going to talk about The Rust Maidens by Gwendolyn Kiste. But first, I wanted to say how touched I am and how excited I was to see all of the names that you guys came up with for my Harpy. They are all amazing. There's some names on there that I don't know where they came from, but they're all so beautiful. So I'm going to write all of the names out, and I'm going to use this TBR jar. I know what it is now. TBR jar, and we're going to find a way to have the Harpy pick the name or randomize the name, or somehow we'll film it. So we'll get to find out what her name is on Tuesday coming up. Also, another little update. I have signed up for the Abominable horror book crate, so I'm pretty excited about that. I signed up for 3 months, so I'm excited to see what they send me. So thank you so much for the recommendations. Okay, so let's talk about the Rust Maidens. I wanted to go through something that's pretty comprehensive, and there are going to be spoilers here, so if you want to read the book first and then come back later, that'll probably be better if you want to avoid spoilers. If you've already read the book or you're curious but you don't feel like reading it but you still want to know what's going on, then let's get started. The cover is so cool. I love this cover. I've been kind of talking about this cover. The artwork is so good. I just really love it. It's awesome, and these are all maidens. You have this middle-aged woman, she's gonna see her mom, who she hasn't seen in like eons. They have a very distant relationship. They treat each other almost like strangers. And then she meets this young woman who has a similar, if not the same, affliction that took her best friend Jacqueline. So we go back to the day when everything started, and that was when Phoebe was 18 years old and she had just graduated from high school. She is having plans already to ask her cousin to leave with her to take off into the sunset with some bond money that her mother has for her, and they'll start their lives new somewhere else but together. They are best friends, but they do have a weird relationship. It's a little romantic, I have to say. Then a girl they know from high school, Lisa, becomes infected with some strange, mysterious disease that nobody's talking about. And other women in the neighborhood are become afflicted as well, and they just seem to be staying home. They're not going anywhere, they're being hidden away by their families. And then Jacqueline gets it. Phoebe freaks out. Her biggest fear in life is that Jacqueline won't be with her. I mean, that is just that's all she cares about. Is Jacqueline, Jacqueline, Jacqueline. Everybody else, to hell with you. But for her, it was just this can't happen. Jacqueline can't be taken away from me. And so she is trying to find a way to figure out what's happening. One of the girls, who's the older sister of Lisa, comes into town because Phoebe calls her, hoping that maybe she can help in some way, because she's sort of this career woman who works at a newspaper. And this Kathleen comes into town, and then the next day publishes this newspaper clipping that was pretty funny. It was beware the Rust Maidens affliction on Denton Street or something like that. So this newspaper clipping then, it causes the FBI to get involved, and suddenly out of nowhere, tourists just decide they need to come and take pictures of these Rust Maidens, who are not even out on the street really. They're in houses. So the FBI are there, they're investigating. There are these tourists that are milling about everywhere trying to take photos of these girls. And then there's Phoebe, who's trying to find a way to save her cousin, but Jacqueline pulls away and just doesn't want anything to do with her anymore. Phoebe is then in anxiety mode, and she's desperate, and she's trying to find out any way she can about what's going on. They are taken by the FBI for examinations. One of the FBI agents, Adrian, allows Phoebe to read all of his files about the situation, which, okay. And, both of them, the FBI and the doctors, are just meh, we don't know what's going on. So Phoebe is walking around nobody cares about the Rust Maidens. I'm the only one who cares about the Rust Maidens. It's only me. but she's not really able to do much because there's nothing to do. But the Rust Maidens themselves are like, we just want to be together and we're okay with this transformation. There is a point in the story where there's a strike and the mill, the steel mill, which is providing all of the jobs for the families in the neighborhood, they decide to shut down the factory. So now all of these men are out of jobs. All of these households are now in danger, and they decide that it's the Rust Maidens' fault because 3 of the Rust Maidens had appeared at one of the strikes and put one of their hands through the metal fence. So I guess they had this ability to sort of just on a molecular level, just the mill shuts down, it makes an announcement on TV and it's like, yeah, we're shutting down the mill. And then the families are like, your fault. And they bring out the pitchforks and everything and torches and stuff. And they start going after these girls who are also their daughters. Phoebe is just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? They're gonna take them and they're gonna do something horrible to them. The Rust Maidens had escaped to a mansion, a decaying mansion, and we're now living there, building their nest, waiting for transformation. Meanwhile, the pitchforks and the torches are just like, no, we're gonna make you come out so we can punish you because that's what parents do, which, okay. And of course they just make a huge mess of the thing. You know, they're just like this angry mob. The mansion just like falls in on itself because it's so full of decay. And now they're like, oh my God, what did we do? You know, we're horrible people. And it's like, yes, you were horrible people. You were always horrible people, but why do you even care now? They're gone. After that, Phoebe is able to escort the Rust Maidens who escaped from the mansion falling in their strange ethereal way that they can just dematerialize and materialize. And she takes them to the mill, which is now defunct, and now that's where the Rust Maidens are. That's where they're not living there, but they're like, I don't know, a lair maybe? I have no idea. And that's pretty much, you know, the end of that timeline. So then we go into the future and we see that the young girl that Phoebe is talking to as an adult who has the affliction, she realizes that she needs to find Jacqueline and the rest of the Rust Maidens and get them to stop it. And you know, she goes to some house that's like in a huge amount of decay and they are there just being rusty and hanging out. They imply through, I guess, their smiles that they won't take this girl to join their decay coven or whatever. So I want to talk about what's really awesome about this book. And I know it's going to seem pretty minimal, but it was pretty important to me. When I started this book and I got 100 pages in, I was like, I don't know, it's not working for me, you know, and I just hope that it gets better. And you know, it was okay, but there was one amazing chapter in there. It describes the mansion that the maidens moved into to build their lair. And the description is just, it's so beautiful. It's the best thing out of the whole entire book. There's other, you know, smaller, beautiful passages there, but this chapter was like everything that I was hungering for. It was beautiful. I was totally lost in it. I think for the author, she definitely had a strong visual idea of these Rust Maidens because it really comes through in her descriptions of them. And they're almost like vignettes because in the book, there's very little description going on. So when she does delve into these things, they're like these little flowers that bloom in the dark and it's beautiful. Like that one chapter alone, I was like, oh my God, yes, like it was so cool. The other thing I liked about it was the Rust Maidens concept. Fucking brilliant, okay? It is just such a cool concept, the way she describes it. And you know, it's a little mysterious in the book. You don't really get a good idea of how they work or why they work or what they are or anything like that. But the visual descriptions in the few passages and like that one chapter and stuff like that, it's inspiring. It is totally inspiring. I am gonna make a puppet. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, guys. I'm gonna make a puppet. You can't stop me. All right, so here are some of the issues that I had with the book. And I am not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that these are my opinions, and if you experience something different, let me know, because I'm totally open to being wrong and also to just learn new perspectives. My main issues, I think, was with Phoebe, because her character is very tedious. She's very anxious all the time. She's always talking about how she's unwanted. Even though I am someone who's like, I know what that feels like, I felt that it was mentioned so much that it was a bit disruptive for me when I was reading. Her relationship with her parents was never explored or really explained. Why was she so distant? Why does she like not talk to them for 30 years after she left? There were no interactions, there were no dialogue, there wasn't much there to show who these people were and what their relationships were to each other that gave you a strong sense of like understanding why she would just be so negative. Like she's just like, it's just so negative, like her feelings. It would have been nice to explore that. I know that her mother is an alcoholic, which of course we can all assume is not fun, but she seemed to have a really great closeness with her father, but it's never really, it's mentioned once, and it's about her and her treehouse that her dad built for her, where she raised butterflies, and the other one was the impala that he helped her work on. And they sort of had this, it seemed like they had some sort of a nice relationship, but nothing is mentioned about it. And also, he's sick and she's just like, kind of doesn't want to deal with it. And the whole entire story, she doesn't even think about like her parents' feelings, her father's feelings. She did make a claim that she has always protected her best friend, but we don't know from what. So, maybe that explains her strange attachment to Jacqueline, but because it doesn't go into why they're so close. She has information that comes from nowhere, you know? Like nowhere. And she's able to say what the Rust Maidens want or understand, but there's no interaction at all. And she's not mind communicating or anything. She just knows, and it's like, why? How do you know that? And like, can you expand upon that? Because if that is what they don't want or they do want, then why? She also has a relationship with one of the FBI agents, which I was like, oh no, please don't. But she does. And their relationship is just so cardboard. It doesn't make any sense. And she's also so bipolar with him. Like, she hates him. She wants to have sex with him. He's a betrayer. Just weird, I don't know, weird stuff. Like maybe hormonal stuff that maybe a teenager might do, so maybe that's what the writer was going for, but it just seemed that he was a grown man, and it just seemed really weird. Like he was the FBI agent who was letting her read all of the files just because. It didn't make any sense. So the other just kind of like blanket issues were the sub-characters were pretty flat. There's very little interactions with other characters. So like I said, the town hated the Rust Maidens. I'm not sure why. These were their daughters. And one of the townspeople were like, we'll get those girls. We'll show them how a real parent punishes. It's like, what are you talking about? That is so insane. Like, I don't even understand, like, what's the deal with being the parent who punishes the Rust Maiden? I just didn't get the relationship. All right, so there are some themes here that I found. One of them was the word invaders. That was something that was used quite frequently through the book. I was trying to figure out maybe what it was used for, because it does seem intentional, but it was a little convoluted for me because the term invaders would be representing the townspeople, the FBI, which makes sense, but also butterflies and even herself. So I wasn't sure. Maybe everyone is invaders to the Rust. Butterflies. So because Phoebe was a caretaker of butterflies, there's this connection between the Rust Maidens being similar to butterflies with their chrysalis. When they're living in the mansion, they're building a chrysalis and they're transforming into something different. Phoebe being the caretaker and the Rust Maidens being the butterflies is sort of, I think makes sense into like her role in in what the Rust Maidens were about. They chose her to be caretaker. World building. There is no world building here. It's very minimal descriptions. There are a lot of music references though, like Bob Seger and the Carpenters and such. This writer has a very specific style that you're gonna either find super clever or a little annoying. It's not character driven, it lacks description and exploration of important events. The story moves way too quickly. It jumps from one thing to another and it feels very abrupt. And I think that this book should also be twice as long as it is. However, there are some really beautiful passages, just really beautiful. And the concept of the Rust Maidens is fucking brilliant. And for that, it's totally worth the read. Harpy, what's our rating? Okay guys, that's it for me. I hope you have a really great holiday weekend if you're in the United States. If not, just a really good weekend in general. I had a lot of fun doing this, and you know, I know that it sounded pretty negative, but this book is definitely worth a read, so don't pass it up. I'll see you next time.